So we're gonna have a look at a few different structures we can use with used to, and hopefully by the end of the video, you guys will have a much better understanding of this area. So first part we're gonna look at is using used to and the difference between using would plus the infinitive. Okay, we're then gonna move on and we're gonna look at a more complex structure, which is the verb to be plus used to plus the gerund. And finally, we're going to look at get plus used to plus gerund. So we'll have a look at each of these different grammatical structures. I'll explain the difference between each of them. We'll do a little bit of practice, and at the end of the class, I'm sure you guys will be feeling much more confident using them. So let's go. Okay, have a look at the example here. I used to sleep for 8 hours every night, but now I only sleep for 6. So in this situation, does this person still sleep for 8 hours? Did it happen once in the past or more than once in the past? So the action I used to sleep for 8 hours is no longer true because now they only sleep for 6. But what we understand from this sentence is that this action happened regularly in the past, or it was a repeated action or a habit. So the first structure we're going to look at is used to plus the infinitive. And as we can see in the example, we use this structure to talk about past habits or repeated actions or situations or states which have now changed, so they're no longer true. I used to sleep for 8 hours every night, but now I sleep for 6. And the form we're using here, quite simply, used to, or the negative, didn't used to, plus the infinitive. And just be really careful here with the negative form. You can see when we have the auxiliary verb did or didn't, we don't use the D at the end of used. Okay? Alright. Have a look here. So maybe some of you recognize this man. His name is Michael Fassbender. He's an actor. But these two pictures, they weren't taken at the same time. The picture on the left of the screen was taken a couple of years ago, and the picture on the right is a much more recent photograph. So let's talk about what has changed. You can see here, Michael Fassbender used to have shorter hair. Right now his hair is longer, so again it's a situation, or in this case a state, in the past that has now changed. Also, he didn't used to have a beard. You can see nowadays he has a beard, facial hair. In the past he didn't. Maybe he shaved. Okay. Alright, so used to talk about past habits, repeated actions, states or situation in the past that are no longer true. The situation has changed. But just be careful when you guys use this structure. Used to doesn't exist in the present tense. So if we want to talk about present habits, not past habits, we should use usually plus the present simple. So many non-native speakers make a mistake here. So instead of saying I usually walk to work to talk about something that's still happening, a present habit, they might use the used to structure. And that might cause a little bit of confusion, because of course when we say used to plus infinitive, we're talking about a past habit that is no longer happening. So if you want to talk about a habit that you still have, use usually plus the present simple. So I usually walk to work. He usually walks to work. She usually walks to work. Okay. Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. I'm sure you guys are familiar with would, but maybe you haven't seen it used in this way before, because would plus infinitive can also be used to talk about repeated past actions, in much the same way as used to plus infinitive can be used. So, for example, Every Friday I would play football after school. In this sentence, we're talking about something that happened regularly in the past but is no longer happening. So sentence 1, the meaning is the exact same as sentence 2. Every Friday I used to play football after school. In each sentence, we're talking about a regular past action that is no longer happening. The situation has changed. So both these sentences are grammatically correct and the meaning is the exact same. However, there are some important differences in the way we use used to and would. So, would is not used with stative verbs. So what are stative verbs? They describe a state of being. So for example, the verb to be, to understand, to feel, to love. These would be some of the most common examples of stative verbs. So have a look here. When I was a kid, I used to feel happier. This sentence is perfectly correct because, as we've already discussed, used to can be used to talk about repeated past actions, habits, states, or situations. However, the second example, when I was a kid, I would feel happier, is actually grammatically incorrect because we cannot use would plus infinitive in this way. And the reason is we're talking about a state. We're using a stative verb here, feel. Okay? So when you use these stative verbs to describe a state of being, you must use the used to plus infinitive structure. We would never use would plus infinitive in this way. And just another important point, we cannot use would when we want to talk about a past state. So not only with stative verbs, but also to talk about a past state. So again, in this situation, we have to use used to. So for example, I used to live in Chicago when I was a kid. Again, perfectly correct. However, I would live in Chicago when I was a kid is incorrect because living somewhere, this is a state, and we cannot use would plus infinitive in this way. Now I'm aware you guys may not have seen would plus infinitive to be used in this way. You're probably much more comfortable using it in conditional structures, or with past modals. I would have gone. It can also be used this way. But this structure, it's much more commonly used with native English speakers. In my experience, I haven't seen many non-native English speakers use would plus infinitive in this way. So the use of would is more limited than used to. So that means you need to be careful which form you choose to use. So think about the situation. If it's a stative verb or you're describing a past state, use used to, not would. And the good news is, if you're unsure which form to use, just use used to, because you'll be right in every circumstance. So if you have any doubts, just choose the used to plus infinitive form. The would form, it's still good to know because you will see it in articles, on TV shows. It's very, very commonly used by native English speakers, so it's a good form to be aware of, even if you choose not to incorporate it into your own speech. Okay, so I'll give you the first little bit of practice today. We've got 4 sentences here. You have a verb in bracket. Your job is to complete the sentence using used to plus the verb in brackets. Or if you think both forms are possible, if you think used to and would are possible in the situation, you can use both forms. So just be careful. In some of these sentences, both forms are possible. In some of them, only the used to form is possible. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to think about it, and then we'll correct together. Alright, let's take a look at number one here. Sean, English every day, but now he's too busy. So yeah, we've got a repeated action in the past, and the situation has now changed. The action is study. So in this example, what do you guys think? Used to study, or is the would form also possible here? Here, we can use both. Both forms are perfectly possible, and the meaning is the same. Okay, good job. Number two, Sharon long hair when she was younger. Okay, so our verb is have. We're talking about her hair, so we're talking about a state here, the state of having long hair. So for that reason, used to is possible, but we cannot use would in this situation. So the correct answer, Sharon used to have long hair when she was younger. Alright, really, really good. Number three, James, breakfast in the morning before work. So, our verb is have. Now, just be careful here. So it's the same verb as number two, but is it expressing the same meaning? We're talking about breakfast here. So the verb have, in this context, the meaning is eat. James eats, or James used to eat breakfast in the morning before work. So, it's a repeated action. In this case, we actually can use both forms. We can use used to, or we can use would have breakfast. So just to explain this point again. Number two, we have the verb have, but we're talking about the state of having long hair. We cannot use would to describe past states. However, in number three, even though it's the same verb, have, the meaning is different, because in number three, have meaning is eat. So in this situation, both forms are possible because we're just describing a repeated past action. James used to have, or James would have breakfast. So the verb have, it's quite flexible in English. It's an example of a delexicalized verb. And what this means is it has many different meanings. So the meaning depends on the situation. You know, we can use have to talk about possession. We can use have to mean eat. I had dinner last night. It can also mean drink. I had 2 pints in the pub. Okay. So maybe in a future lesson we could have a look at some more examples of this type of verb. You know, you've got have, make, and do. They're all common examples. So number 4, Thomas Jane, but now he has a new girlfriend. Okay, so poor Jane, because this situation is no longer true. We've got love. So do you guys remember love? It's an example of a stative verb. So we cannot use would with stative verbs in this way. So we must use our used to form. Thomas used to love Jane, but now he has a new girlfriend. He no longer loves Jane, and his situation today is that he has a new girlfriend. Okay, really, really good job, guys. And just before we move on, the important points to remember from this lesson so far. Used to and would plus infinitive can both be used to describe repeated actions or past habits which have changed. I used to sleep for 8 hours every night. I would sleep for 8 hours every night. However, would is not used with stative verbs. So remember, verbs which describe a state of being, be, feel, love, and we cannot use it to talk about a past state. So, I used to live in London, not I would live in London. Okay? And if you are in doubt, if you're not sure which form to use, just use used to, because you can use it in all situations. Would is much more limited in its use, but like I said earlier, it's still a good structure to be aware of, because you will see it used by native speakers very often. Okay, let's move on. So have a look at this sentence here. Rodrigo has lived in Dublin for 10 years. He's used to driving on the left of the road. So of course in Ireland and the UK, we drive on the left hand side of the road. In most other countries in the world, they drive on the right of the road. So as you can imagine, when Rodrigo first arrived in Dublin, this was probably quite unusual for him. He was probably looking the wrong way, crossing the street. So it would have been a strange situation in the beginning. However, he's lived in Dublin for 10 years, so he's used to driving on the left of the road. Is this situation still strange for him? No, he's now used to driving on the left of the road. So this situation is now normal, comfortable, or less strange for Rodrigo. Just have a look at the structure being used here. He's. So it's not he used to. This time we've got the verb to be. And we use this to talk about a situation which is now familiar or less strange than it was in the past. So the form here, the verb be plus used to plus gerund. So we're no longer using used to plus infinitive. When you've got the verb to be before used to, the verb after used to is the gerund. So this is the verb plus ing. He is used to driving. If you said he's used to drive, this would be grammatically incorrect. Just another point about the verb to be here. You guys, you can use this in any form. He's used to driving, I'm talking about now. He will be used to driving, so the situation will be comfortable in the future. He was used to driving, and the situation was comfortable in the past. So you can put the verb to be in any form you like here. The important thing is, after it, you've got used to, and then the gerund form, the verb plus ing. So let's have a look at another example. I'm not used to sleeping with the light switched off. I always leave it when I go to bed. So this time the sentence is negative. I am not used to sleeping. So what we've done here, we've just taken the verb to be and we've made it negative in the usual way. So this time we're using the structure to describe a situation that is not comfortable, is not familiar for the speaker. They're not comfortable sleeping with the light switched off. They always leave it on when they go to bed. Maybe they don't like the dark. Maybe they're afraid of darkness. So, example number 2. Paula is from Brazil. She's not used to living in a cold climate. So here in Ireland, we have many Brazilians who come here to study. However, they can find it quite difficult, especially at the beginning, because of course Brazil has a much warmer climate than we have here in Ireland. So Paula is not used to living in a cold climate. This situation is not comfortable, it's not familiar for her. I am used to living in this climate because I'm Irish, I've lived here all my life. It's a familiar situation for me, it's not strange at all. But from someone coming from a warmer climate, it might be strange or uncomfortable at first. Okay, so that's be used to. Just have a look at this conversation here. So we've got person A. I can't get used to working at night. I feel tired all the time. Person B responds, don't worry, you'll soon get used to it. So this time, have a look at the verb we're using before used to. It's the verb get. What is the meaning here? I can't get used to working at night. So we're talking about a situation, in this case working at night, but this person, they just can't become comfortable with this situation. However, person B responds saying, you will soon get used to it. You'll soon get used to it. You will soon become more comfortable with this situation. This situation will become less strange. So our structure is get used to, and the meaning here is to talk about a new situation which is becoming familiar or less strange. So the important word here is becoming. It's not familiar We're not accustomed to it yet. We're not comfortable yet, but it's becoming more familiar. We're becoming more comfortable with the situation. So like person B said, you'll soon get used to it. You know, in the future you will become comfortable with this situation. And our form here is get plus used to, and again plus the gerund. And just like to be, you guys, you can put get in any form you like. You can put it in the past. He got used to living in Ireland. He became used to living in Ireland. Or you can put it in the future. He will get used to working at night. He's going to get used to working at night. So any form you like, but once again, after you use the verb get, use used to and the gerund, the verb plus ing. You cannot use the infinitive after used to with these structures. So the difference between be used to and get used to is exactly the same as the difference between the verb be and get plus an adjective. So this is what I tell my students sometimes if they get a little bit confused with the difference between these two structures. Just have a look at a simpler example here. It is cold. Alright, so we've got the verb to be plus an adjective. So it's cold. The meaning, it's cold now. It's getting cold. This time the meaning is it's becoming cold. So meaning here, it's the exact same way, the exact same difference between the verb be and get in these examples as it is when we use them. We're used to. I'm used to working. I'm comfortable with this situation. Now, I'm getting used to working and I'm becoming more comfortable with this situation. Alright, so more complex example here. Here we've got the three structures we've looked at today with used to. We've got used to, be used to, and get used to. So have a look at this paragraph and let's see if we can understand the meaning. So Ryan used to work every day, but now he has retired. So here we've got used to plus the infinitive verb used to work. Now we know this situation is no longer true. So it was a past repeated action. He used to work. It's finished now, and we can see he is now retired. He's finished working. But he's not used to having so much free time. So of course, when you retire, you've got much more free time, much more time to yourself to do what you would like to do. But this situation, he is not used to having so much free time. It's not comfortable for him. It's not a familiar situation. So we've got our be, used to, and then the verb ing. But slowly, he is getting used to it. So even though he's not comfortable with it now, the situation is becoming more familiar, less strange. He's getting used to it. Okay, alright, so a little bit more practice for you guys now. So 4 sentences. Now I've provided you 2 options for each sentence. Look at the sentence very carefully. Have a look at the structure being used, okay? And what verb is used? Is it be? Is it get? And see if you can choose the grammatically correct option in each situation. Again, I'll give you guys some time to complete the exercise and then we'll correct together. Okay, let's take a look. So question 1, I'm not used to up this early. So we've got the verb to be here, which means after used to, cannot use the infinitive form. We've got to use the gerund. So I'm not used to getting up this early. Of course, to get up is a a phrasal verb, and it means to leave the bed. Yeah, just another point here, the difference between the phrasal verbs to wake up and to get up. Very, very similar in meaning, but when we use wake up, we mean stop sleeping, when you open your eyes. Get up is actually the action of leaving the bed and beginning your day. Alright, back to the topic. So, question 2. I used to a lot. So, I used to. So this time, I'm just using the used to plus infinitive structure, repeated past action, the situation has changed. I used to read a lot. So I used to plus infinitive. Very, very good. This person no longer reads a lot. Question 3. You'll have to get used to on the right when you live there. You will have to get used to. So lots of grammar in this sentence. But what verb is being used before used to here? We've got the verb get used to. So you guys know the verb after used to, it's got to be in the gerund form. So you will have to get used to driving on the right when you live there. So this person will have to become comfortable with the situation of driving on the right. And finally, question 4. I didn't used to it, but I do now. So didn't used to, you can see here we don't use the D because we've got our auxiliary verb didn't. This is just our first structure we looked at today. Past habit. I didn't used to like it, but I do now. Excellent. Okay, really, really good, guys. I'm gonna make it a bit more difficult for you now. This time I'm not gonna give you options. So here we've got 3 sentences, and your job is to complete the sentence using either the be used to structure or the get used to structure plus the verb in brackets. Okay? So read the sentence carefully, think about the situation, and see if you guys can choose the correct structure and put the verb in the correct form. So once again, I'll give you a little bit of time to think about this, and then we will correct. Okay, so number 1. Sarah has been a nurse all her life. So she's been a nurse all her life. She's been doing this a long time. Of course, nurses, they work at night. So this situation, it's a situation she is comfortable with. It is familiar to her. So we need to use our be used to structure. So she is used to working. Well done. So she is used to working. Great. Now, of course, you guys can use the contraction here. Instead of she is, you can say she's. Number 2. If you want to get fit, then you'll have to more exercise. So you might remember from a previous lesson, we looked at some conditional structures. We've got an example here. However, the topic today is used to. So could you guys figure it out? You will have to more exercise. So this is a person, they want to get fit. They're not fit now. So in order to get fit, they'll have to become comfortable, become more familiar with the idea of doing more exercise. So you will have to get used to doing more exercise. You'll have to become familiar with this action. And finally, when Amanda started her new job, she couldn't at 5 a.m. So, when Amanda started her new job, she couldn't. So, back when she started the job, she found this very, very difficult. So difficult that she just couldn't become familiar with it. So, she couldn't get used to, a verb is get up, so she couldn't get used to getting up at 5 a.m. So, a really, really good job if you guys got those three sentences correct. Alright, hopefully by now you're getting used to using used to. Just a few points to remember so far. We use used to, then used to, plus the infinitive to talk about past habits or repeated actions. And you guys know we can also use would plus infinitive in these situations. But if you want to talk about a state, or you're using stative verbs, be, feel, love, we must use the used to form. Would cannot be used in this way. We use be used to plus gerund to talk about a new situation which is now familiar or less strange. I'm used to living in Ireland. I'm comfortable with this situation. And again, the verb be here is flexible. You can put it in any form you want. If you want to talk about a situation in the future that will be comfortable, you will be used to it in a cold climate. And finally, we use get used to plus gerund to talk about a new situation which is becoming familiar or less strange. So again, the key word here is becoming. It's not familiar, it's not comfortable yet, we're not accustomed to it yet, but we're in the process of becoming more comfortable, more familiar. So I'm getting used to doing these online classes with you guys every Wednesday. I'm not totally familiar with it yet, but I'm in the process of becoming more familiar with doing it. Okay. We're gonna try something a little bit different now. I'm gonna read 6 sentences for you guys. So if you've got a piece of paper or a pen with you now, fantastic. If not, you can use your phone, anything where you can transcribe the sentences I say. So I'll read 6 sentences. Your job is listen really carefully and see if you can write down exactly what I'm saying. Okay? So 6 sentences, listen carefully, write the sentences you hear. Are you ready? Okay. Sentence number 1. I'm not used to sleeping on such a hard bed. And I'll repeat one more time. I'm not used to sleeping on such a hard bed. Sentence 2. I'll never get used to living alone. I'll never get used to living alone. Number 3. Did you used to sleep a lot when you were a teenager? Did you used to sleep a lot when you were a teenager? Number 4. She's used to working in the city. She's used to working in the city. Number 5. I can't get used to driving on the right hand side of the road. And one more time. I can't get used to driving on the right hand side of the road. And the final sentence. He didn't used to go to the gym. He didn't used to go to the gym. Okay. So, let's see how you guys did. The first sentence I read, I'm not used to sleeping on such a hard bed. So compare what you've written to the original sentence. How did you guys do? Did you get the correct form? Spelling? Okay, great. The second sentence. I'll never get used to living alone. I'll never get used to living alone. So here we've got our get plus used to plus gerund structure. This person will never become comfortable with the situation of living alone. Alright, good job. 3. This time a question. Did you used to sleep a lot when you were a teenager? So hopefully here you guys remembered, because we've got the auxiliary verb did, we don't use the D at the end of used to. Did you used to sleep a lot when you were a teenager? Okay, great, really good work so far. Number 4, she's used to working in the city. So here, just like number 1, we've got our be plus used to plus gerund structure. In this example, she is comfortable with working in the city. Fantastic. All right. Number 5. So this was a long one. Hopefully you guys got this one correct. I can't get used to driving. So we've got our get used to plus gerund on the right hand side of the road. And I'm sure you guys remember that when we're using the gerund with a verb that ends in E, we drop the E and add ing. So of course the infinitive is to drive, the R-I-V-E, but because we've got the gerund form, we drop the E and add ing. Alright, it's a great job if you guys got that one correct. And the last one, he didn't used to go to the gym. Didn't used to go to the gym. So once again, hopefully you guys remembered not to add the D at the end of used to. Okay, really, really good work, guys. I'm going to read these sentences one more time, but this time I'm going to read them at a more natural tempo, a more native speed. So I want you guys to listen carefully again, but pay particular attention to the way I'm pronouncing used to in each sentence. Right? Listen carefully to the pronunciation. I'm not used to sleeping on such a hard bed. I'll never get used to living alone. Did you used to sleep a lot when you were a teenager? She's used to working in the city. I can't get used to driving on the right hand side of the road. He didn't used to go to the gym. Did you guys hear it there? Now, did I say I'm not used to sleeping? No, so in normal speech, the sounds, they're much more connected. We don't have so many pauses. This is particularly true with the used to structure. I didn't say I'm not used to, I said I'm not used to. So, the pronunciation of used to here, used to. And that's the way native English speakers will say it. You'll never hear a native speaker speak like she's used to working in the city. The sounds are connected. Used to. Used to. So if we just have a look over here, you can see the phonemic spelling of this phrase. There's no pause between the words, and right at the end, it's not used to. It's a short sound, really short sound. It's called a schwa, almost half a sound. Used to. So let's try it together, guys. Used to. Used to. I'm not used to. I'll never get used to. Did you used to? She's used to. I can't get used to. He didn't used to. So at first it takes a little bit of practice, but I'm sure you'll get used to using the correct pronunciation here, and it will make a big difference, especially if you're interacting with native speakers, because once again, this is the way a native speaker will always pronounce this structure. Okay, so I'll just leave you guys with a little bit of practice you can do in your free time. So here I've got some sentences using the different structures we looked at today. What did you used to look like 10 years ago? What did you used to look like 10 years ago? What hobbies did you used to have when you were a child? What hobbies did you used to have when you were a child? How long do you think it usually takes to get used to living in a foreign country? So maybe some of you guys have experience of living abroad, living in a foreign country. How long did it take you to get used to living there? Was it a culture shock? The food, the weather, the language? And finally, is there anything you've been doing for a long time that you're still not used to doing? So guys, these questions, you can use them if you can find a colleague, a friend, anybody to practice with. You can interview them, practice the pronunciation, okay? The correct pronunciation of used to. And you can also recycle the different structures we used today. So, used to plus infinitive, didn't used to, be used to plus gerund, get used to plus gerund. Alright, guys, we'll leave it there for today's class. Thank you very, very much for watching the lesson. Once again, I hope by now you're getting used to using these different structures. Again, the important thing here is just practice. Practice the structures, practice the pronunciation, and I'm sure you'll get used to using them very, very soon. Have a great day, guys. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.